Immaculate. So this is the newest Sydney Sweeney vehicle. Sydney Sweeney's a nun.
I really enjoyed this. I like this far more than I was expecting to like this, to be honest with you. Some excellent performances, some genuine scary bits, I think. Some good twists as well. It led us down one path and then switched it at the end, which I thought was pretty cool.
Well, we had both speculated throughout the marketing of this movie, and the marketing very heavily implies that there's a supernatural element to this that was ghosts, like kind of a haunted convent. We said no, it's probably not that. It's going to be people are trying to kill her. And sure enough, that's exactly the thing. A young, very beautiful, as we're reminded throughout the movie, woman who joins this kind of Italian kind of convent that looks after elderly nuns that are on their way out.
It's like a retirement home kind of thing.
Some weird stuff starts happening, and then she becomes a virgin pregnancy, and she starts getting treated like the second coming of the Virgin Mary. I think this movie's just dripping in atmosphere. And we've seen this in other movies, like I think The Nun does this really well, just that kind of gothic architecture of religious buildings. Sydney Sweeney, I think, is incredible in this movie, genuinely. And there's particularly the final scene of the movie must have been rough for her to film.
Oh, horrendous. Very surprised they went that far. Do you know what I mean? With the end scene, I wasn't expecting that level of brutality. We'll get a hint at how brutal this is going to be at the very opening scene with the young lady caught in the gate, and her leg comes in the gate, and then they just snap her leg.
Yeah. So the opening is like the previous virgin character, because this is a recurring thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. Trying to escape and getting caught. There's nothing gives me more anxiety, man, than a buried alive scene. So she wakes up in a coffin, and it's just like, God, what, you can't do anything. It's just horrendous. I think really, really unsettling way to open the movie.
What is it about nuns and convents that's just so freaky and scary? Just the sight of the convent and the old kind of nuns wandering around. So it's horrible. They're horrible people.
There's a moment in the movie where early on it kind of sets up a thing that it doesn't pay off. So it says like this old nun, she's like, oh, be careful with her. She likes to wander, and she might attack. And I figure that she at some point there would be this creepy moment where like the nun attacks her or something. That doesn't happen in the movie, does it?
No, I don't think we get that at all. We do get the creepy old nun appearing next to her when she's seen her mate get her tongue cut out. She has that little scene there, which is again a pretty horrific scene.
Was actually quite surprised how graphic this gets at times. Like there's some really horrific. One particular one was fingernails getting pulled off, just gross.
Yeah, because she's puked up her own tooth at one point as well, hasn't she?
She starts getting the indications that there's something going on here. Like she gets attacked by another nun who says like, this should have been me and stuff. So like, you can feel that there's a plan behind. She finds files of like her childhood. And the twist of the movie, earlier on you find out that one of the nails that Jesus was crucified with is like in possession of the church, and she gets to like hold it. So the implication to us is that this nail has like impregnated her in some way immaculately. But it turns out one of the priests is also a scientist, and he pulled DNA off of the nail, so Jesus's DNA, and he's effectively for the last like 20 years been trying to clone Jesus.
And that's the bit that I wasn't expecting at all. I thought this was going to be a spiritual kind of, a bit like Antichrist Damien, that kind of thing. Or you're going to be impregnated by the devil.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought too. Yeah, because you're seeing these weird red masked kind of figures, and there's a vision she has.
They never really explained the red mask thing, but the nail is in like red powder, isn't it? So I thought there was something kind of linked to that. But then it turns out that this guy's a bit of a Dr. Moriarty kind of thing. He's just genetic mucking around and injecting her with whatever DNA. Do you think when he drugged her at the start, did he sleep with her, or did he just impregnate her in some way?
No, I'd imagine they'd have created semen, I guess, from it to impregnate her or something, or mixed it with something, to kind of inseminate her. I will say, like, Sydney Sweeney in this movie, it's harrowing what this character goes through. She gets fucking like crosses burned into the bottom of her feet and everything.
It's horrible, yeah, the feet.
Absolutely horrendous. I think there was a brilliant sequence where she tries to escape. She effectively fakes a miscarriage, kills a chicken. It shows how far she's come, because like early in the movie she's like being shown the kind of the dirty work that the nuns have to do, and one of them is beheading chickens, and she's like, oh, I can't do it, but she's that desperate. So she beheads a chicken and like puts the blood over, and we don't find this out until like later, but she puts the blood all over to fake a miscarriage and try and convince them to get her to the hospital so she can escape.
Did I hear that rightly? But because I got all that, and I got that she'd chop the chicken's head off and smear herself with blood and stuff like that, but then when she's getting chastised by the other nun, she says, you put that filthy beast inside you. So did she stick the chicken bits in bits?
Yeah, I think so. Probably some like bloody pieces or whatever, just to sell it, I guess, if she was checked. There wasn't enough to put it on the dress. Yeah, it's pretty fucking hardcore.
Dirty beast.
But there's also like a moment where she finds like the lab where like all this was going on, and like there's these weird deformed kind of things in jars showing that this has been happening. What's the deal with like the other, because this is all happening at this one covenant, but not everybody's in on it? Like, do they just regularly get new nuns in and the older ones are too old to remember, or...
Well, no, I kind of got the impression that the older ones were all in on it, and it was new nuns being brought in who've all got kind of dodgy backgrounds and things, or are susceptible to it, and they try it with most of them. And some of them get impregnated, or some of them don't. It doesn't spell it out very well, I have to say. It doesn't explain it. Some of them are obviously aware of what's going on, with them saying things like, it should have been me. And then other ones, like the girl who gets her tongue cut out, haven't got a clue. They think they're just there to look after the nuns.
I love how Sydney goes on just a killing spree. Kind of towards the end, she's about to give birth. She, like, her water breaks, and she makes a dash to escape, and she, like, bashes a nun's face in with, like, a table.
As well, that bit. Whoa, it's brutal, that bit. The only thing about that, James, is I didn't notice. So do you know when they're down in the lab and you've got the main vicar, the main priest guy, and he's got like a sidekick? I didn't see him die. You know, he was in the car as well, I think.
No, I don't think he does he?
I don't remember seeing him get his comeuppance.
Who does she kill when she's in the bed? The nun first, and then she goes and kills the kind of the vicar guy.
Yeah, she grots him with his beads, doesn't she?
Brutal, like, so good. She's a really extended fight with the main priest, burns him, and then stabs him in the neck with the nail from the cross. Yeah. But then the ending of the movie is just fucked. There's about a probably 2 minute long, it's just kind of on her face in the shots in the trailer, where she's just screaming as the baby's coming out. That must have killed her, recording that all day, screaming at the top of your lungs.
And we hear this kind of horrendous wheezing and kind
monstrous,
of
almost like it's yeah.
Oh, she bites off the umbilical
cord. that you know me and belly buttons, Pete. I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
So you hear the baby wheezing. You don't really see it, which I think was an interesting choice, because I was left thinking, is this thing horrendously deformed and stuff like that, or is it just a baby? But then she picks up a massive rock and basically bludgeons it to death, which is a really hardcore for a movie to do.
So it's sort of, as she's going to get the rock, you can kind of see it out of focus in the background. I think it's supposed to be like just deformed, monstrous. It went a dodgy way about getting this thing created, you know, they're not quite perfected.
But the implication, isn't it, is that that's Jesus.
Yeah, but so are all the other little test tube ones that she comes across earlier, you know. I mean, it's, I don't know. But like, yeah, fair play. You know, like, fair enough if you want to.
I haven't done any research, James, but it would be really interesting to see what all of the kind of the hardcore religious groups think of this movie, thinking about how excited they got about Passion of Christ and things like that.
It really doesn't paint the Catholic Church in a great light, this movie. No. I've really had a blast with this. I think it's nice that we finally got a couple of good horror movies. Finally. We've had some shit ones up to now. This was a good time.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was atmospheric. It had enough horror and gore to keep us interested. But more importantly for me, you know, I prefer my horrors atmospheric, spooky kind of stuff. And it had that in spades. Stunning performances, a couple of good twists, and an ending that I'll not forget for a while.